This year, I've lived and worked in both Melbourne and New York City, two of the most expensive places on earth. Now I'm in Medellín, Colombia, and my burn rate is literally less than half of what it was in either place. Same work, the same output, a completely different outcome. Now the maths just work. Here's why building a business in high-cost Western cities makes literally no sense anymore. The first thing I want to talk about is the $100,000 salary illusion and how six figures, while it sounds great, really isn't all that much. And it's amazing how quickly it really goes when you break it down. So I'll use the Australia example because that's what I'm most familiar with, but I know that it's roughly the same everywhere. I mean, in some places, for example, Europe, tax is even higher. But in Australia, you're on $100,000, right? No, you're not. First off, $11,000 gets swept straight out for superannuation, which is basically retirement savings that you can't touch until you're old and wrinkly, if you even make it that far. So that just pulls a whole bunch of your hard-earned money straight out the picture. And then tax will take probably another $19,000 roughly, which leaves you straight away with 70. So 30% is gone before you even touch your own money. And then on top of that, most jobs in Australia will have you living in, well, most of the country lives in Sydney or Melbourne, two of globally the most expensive cities in the world. But even if you manage to live in a cheaper or more rural place, it's still expensive. But let's assume the example of you're in Sydney or Melbourne, you're paying rent, which is probably about $15,000. That's roughly $700 a week, but split between two people because no one's going to be paying that by themselves, or very few people. So take 15 grand out per year for rent, straight away knocks us down from 70K to 55K. Then $12,000 for groceries, roughly. That's about $230 per week. That's about what I spent. I think I've maybe spent slightly more when I was there, but I think that's ballpark about right. The grocery prices in Australia are pretty horrific. And so that knocks you down to $43,000. Take out your utilities, your transport, your phone, your internet, etc. Maybe allow 6 grand for that. We're down at 37. Take out gym, money spent socializing, money spent buying yourself clothes, you're not walking around naked, miscellaneous things like that. Allow maybe 8 grand for that across the year, so that knocks you down to 29,000. And then obviously transport's a big one, so your car, your registration, insurance, fuel maintenance, or if you're rolling without a car, then you obviously got public transport, which is actually can add up quite quickly, and Ubers especially. So call that 7 grand, you're down to 22K. If you've got any student loan debt, you obviously got to take those payments out, call that another 4 grand, down to 18 grand. Say all of that and the grind of the lifestyle makes you want to, book a week-long holiday or 10-day holiday somewhere. Maybe you go to Bali, call that $5,000 for flights and a villa and some spending money for a week or two. Take that out. So you're now down to 13 grand. And then really from that 13 grand, we haven't even talked about the unexpected yet. So things like health, the dentist can quickly burn through your money really fast. Subscriptions, just life generally, just like a car breaking down. Once you account for that, you need like a 10K buffer minimum for that type of shit. And yeah, basically once you account for that, you got nothing left. So you start with 6 figures and you end the year with nothing. And you're wondering, am I just a terrible saver? But no, it's literally not you. It's like, that's the way the system's designed. It's designed so that you feel like you're doing well, but really, once you break it down, the economics are totally stacked against you, and you're going to need a much bigger surplus than 6 figures to actually get anywhere. And this is what I found. I was actually on more than 6 figures when I was living in Melbourne. Even when I was working as an employee, I was well into the 6 figures, and it was still the same. The surplus just evaporated. I mean, the surplus was an illusion. So I've heard a lot of people say, I can't leave, I can't quit my job because I would have to replace my income. Like, I've got mates that are well into the 6 figures and they're thinking, I'm making $200,000 a year, for example. I can't, I want to quit my job and go traveling or relocate to Bali or South Thailand or somewhere. But I'm not going to be able to make 200 grand a year. And what I say to them is that's the 200 grand's not real, as we've just explained, and because you don't actually get that. And actually the number that you need to live the lifestyle, or to live the same or a better quality of life, is actually much, much lower than you would think. It's something that I've realized this year. Contrast living in Melbourne and New York, and then obviously I also lived in Bali, and now I'm in Colombia. And it's really hit it home for me that you do not need, depending on the structure that you're operating from, like if you're freelancing and you're raising your own invoices and you're living internationally, it's a totally, you're in control of when you pay things like tax, for example. And also a lot of the things that previously would be non-deductible expenditure as an employee, suddenly those actually become genuine business expenses. So you shift that expenditure from personal, which is effectively a financial black hole, into a business, and then you only pay tax on the profit that's left after you deduct all of those expenses. So it totally flips the economics. And really, when you put them side to side, the situation in Melbourne, Australia, that we just basically gave an example of, if you compare that to Bali, for example, you can live in Bali paying $1,000 per month is going to get you villa accommodation. And you can basically eat out 3 times a day for roughly $6,000 per year, I would say. That's what, $500 a month. That literally will get you, if you're careful with where you go and you don't go to the beach clubs and party up, that literally $6,000 a year will have you eating out 2 to 3 times a day. You won't look at prices when you buy groceries. Things like utilities and transport over in Bali are totally marginal. I mean, they're basically almost free. Like you rent a scooter for $100 a month or $150 a month. The fuel is cheap. Yeah, and then the gym memberships there are actually reasonably premium, but still, your other costs are so negligible that that's your one splurge you allow. You add all of that up and it comes to roughly $25,000 to $30,000. So suddenly you can see the massive delta between, you've got 100K in Australia or 100K in the United States, and you feel like you've got nothing for it. In Bali, and a lot of people are doing this, I've seen it from my experience firsthand living there. A lot of people go there and they realize this, that when you're a freelancer, you raise an invoice to a client, $500, you get paid the whole $500. The government doesn't get to dip their hand in and take any tax out of that. Instead, you get to spend it how you please and only and deduct any genuine business expenses from it. And then only at the end of the year, when you file your tax return, do you square up with the government whatever tax is payable on the profit that you made. So really the escape number or the freedom number for this lifestyle that you'll see on Instagram is not 100K. It's not you have to match your salary. It's like if you can freelance your way to $50,000 a year, if you're on 6 figures and you can literally freelance your way to 50 grand, take more than a 50% pay cut, you will literally be living better than a 6-figure employee in Melbourne or New York City or Sydney or wherever. And I know that for sure because I've lived both lives. And all we've talked about so far is the economics, but that's not the full story. There's a massive environment tax that you pay from living a corporate grind in a city. It's utterly miserable in a lot of cases. At least that was my experience. You're there through all seasons. You're there in the winter and you're going out and commuting at 7 o'clock in the morning under grey skies and rain. It's just fucking miserable. Compare this grind, right, to you're working in Bali. You wake up in a villa. It's beautiful. The cleaners come 2 to 3 times a week. They keep it nice. The fridge is stocked because you got plenty of money for food. You don't even open the fridge, you just walk out your villa in the sun and go down to the local cafe and sit down there and have your morning coffee. Like literally, it costs you $12 or something. You head back to the villa, do a bit of work through the day, take a few breaks and dip in the pool, maybe have a tanning session over your lunch, shoot off to the gym, of course, come back, and then you knock off around 4 p.m, you head down to the beach and you watch the sunset over the Indian Ocean. Maybe there's a DJ there, maybe you have a coconut if you're not drinking. Like, just think about what that does for your mental. Like, location is an input. In the West, you fight your environment, and in places like Bali or Medellín, the environment helps you build. So it just totally changes your whole perspective on everything. Your baseline lifts, and that's the experience that I've had. One thing I've heard from a lot of my friends especially is that I can't freelance. Like, it's cool that you were able to do it, but it just doesn't work for me, like, for whatever reason. I hear this from lawyers. I hear it from people that are in whatever kind of corporate job that for some reason they just think that they can't do it. And I just think for most people, this is just simply untrue. It's uncomfortable to think about making the jump, but you need to start thinking about it in terms of you're not a job title. You're an individual who's got skills. That's why your employer is paying you. And if the reality of your job is that you're sitting at your desk for 70 to 80% of the time, your job is portable. And whatever skills you're engaged by your employer to provide, those can be delivered to other clients. And so what you need to do is basically detach the skill from just your one employer and start trying to find some other work. Focus on delivering it only remotely and see yourself really as a problem solver for clients. Do an audit of what is the value that I'm adding in my job? What do I actually really do? What am I really good at? And write those things down and then go, okay, well, how do I potentially deliver this remotely for multiple clients at once? And you probably will work out for most jobs that you can actually do it. It's not impossible. It's just something you have to mentally come to terms with. But if you really want to do it, then it's usually there for the taking. And I know that that's not 100% true. For example, there are people like in medical, for example, that's one industry where it's a lot more difficult. There's legislation and things that make it, you have to physically be present in a city, work in a hospital, whatever. With those types of roles, if you really want this type of lifestyle, and some people don't, but if you do, then you're kind of in the position where you might need to retrain or stay salaried but live lean and basically just have a plan that results in stacking aggressively and investing while living the city grind. But it's not optimal. But I mean, if that's the career path you chose and you're happy with that aspect, then it's one of the limitations of it, I guess. Ultimately, the goal in all of this isn't to get rich and then leave expensive cities. It's to actually leave the expensive cities first, buy your time back, enjoy your life now, not put it on hold until a certain indeterminate date in the future, which may never come. And then use that time to actually build, use that perspective and that that renewed energy that you have from living in a place that's beautiful, that you enjoy waking up in. Use that to build something that delivers value to the world and ultimately to get rich. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more. I drop a video like this once every 48 hours. Cheers.